Welcome to History with Herodotus, where we delve into the depths of human experience and uncover the complexities of our shared past. Today, we embark on a journey to explore one of the most pivotal battles of World War I, the Battle of Tannenberg, a clash that would shape the fate of empires and leave an indelible mark on the course of history. In the sweltering summer of 1914, the world was ablaze with tension. The intricate web of alliances and rivalries between European powers had reached a boiling point, and the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo would prove to be the spark that ignited the flames of war. In the midst of this chaos, two empires stood poised on the brink of collision: the German Empire, with its highly disciplined and modernized military, and the Russian Empire, with its vast resources and seemingly endless reserves of manpower. The border between these two titans stretched across the plains of East Prussia, a region of rolling hills, dense forests, and sparkling lakes that would soon become a battleground. At the helm of the German Eighth Army stood General Paul von Hindenburg, a veteran commander with a reputation for strategic brilliance and unwavering determination. His counterpart, General Alexander Samsonov, led the Russian Second Army, a force that had been hastily assembled in response to the outbreak of war. As these two armies began to converge on the small town of Tannenberg, the fate of East Prussia, and indeed the entire war, hung precariously in the balance. In the weeks leading up to the battle, the German Eighth Army had been engaged in a desperate struggle to hold back the advancing Russian forces. The Russians, driven by a sense of urgency and fueled by their numerical superiority, had launched a series of bold attacks against the German lines. However, their efforts were hindered by inadequate supplies, poor communication, and a lack of coordination between units. Meanwhile, the Germans had been busy fortifying their positions, constructing elaborate networks of trenches, barbed wire, and machine gun emplacements. They had also developed a sophisticated system of intelligence gathering, using scouts, spies, and aerial reconnaissance to monitor the movements of the Russian army. This intelligence would prove invaluable in the days ahead, as Hindenburg and his staff sought to outmaneuver their opponents and gain a decisive advantage on the battlefield. As the Russians continued their advance, they began to encounter pockets of German resistance which slowed their progress and disrupted their supply lines. The Germans, meanwhile, were busy implementing a bold plan to encircle and destroy the Russian Second Army. This plan, devised by Hindenburg's chief of staff, Erich Ludendorff, called for a series of swift and decisive attacks against the Russian flanks, aimed at cutting off their retreat and trapping them in a deadly pocket of German steel. The Russians, driven by a sense of pride and duty, were determined to push forward and capture the strategic town of Königsberg, while the Germans were equally resolved to defend their territory and shatter the Russian army. As the two forces clashed in the days ahead, the outcome would be far from certain, and the fate of millions would hang in the balance. As the Russian Second Army continued its advance, it became increasingly entangled in the intricate web of German defenses. On August 23, 1914, the Russians launched a series of frontal assaults against the German lines, hoping to break through and capture the strategic town of Olsztyn. However, these attacks were met with fierce resistance, as the Germans unleashed a maelstrom of artillery fire and machine gun bursts that cut down the Russian troops like wheat before a scythe. The Russian commander, General Samsonov, was undeterred by these setbacks, believing that his numerical superiority would ultimately prove decisive. He ordered his troops to press on, despite the heavy casualties they were suffering. Meanwhile, the German commanders, Hindenburg and Ludendorff, were busy implementing their plan to encircle and destroy the Russian Second Army. They began to shift their forces to the north, aiming to cut off the Russian retreat and trap them in a pocket of German steel. As the days passed, the Russian situation grew increasingly desperate. Their supply lines were stretched to the breaking point, and their troops were beginning to suffer from hunger and exhaustion. On August 25, 1914, the Germans launched a series of swift and decisive attacks against the Russian flanks, aiming to cut off their retreat and trap them in a deadly pocket. The Russians, realizing too late the danger that was unfolding, attempted to fall back, but it was too late. The German pincers were closing in, and the Russian Second Army was on the verge of being encircled. In the midst of this chaos, a sense of desperation began to grip the Russian troops. As one soldier later recalled, We were like sheep being driven to the slaughter, with no escape from the German guns. The Russians fought valiantly, but they were vastly outnumbered and outgunned. On August 26, 1914, the Germans launched a final, crushing attack against the Russian center, shattering their lines and sending them fleeing in panic. As the Russian army disintegrated, Hindenburg and Ludendorff watched with a sense of grim satisfaction. Their plan had worked to perfection, and the Russian Second Army was on the verge of being annihilated. The Germans began to round up the Russian prisoners, who were exhausted, hungry, and demoralized. The Battle of Tannenberg was all but over, and the Germans had emerged victorious. As Hindenburg later wrote, the battle was a masterpiece of modern warfare, a triumph of strategy and tactics that would be remembered for generations to come. As the German army closed in on the remnants of the Russian Second Army, General Samsonov's situation became increasingly hopeless. On August 29, 1914, he took his own life, unable to bear the shame of defeat. The Russian army, once a formidable force, had been utterly destroyed, with over 90,000 casualties and 78,000 prisoners taken by the Germans. The Battle of Tannenberg was one of the most decisive victories of the war, and it marked a turning point in the Eastern Front. In the aftermath of the battle, the German army continued to push eastward, capturing key cities and territories from the Russians. The Russian army, still reeling from the loss at Tannenberg, struggled to regroup and mount an effective counterattack. As one historian noted, the Battle of Tannenberg was a catastrophic defeat for Russia, one that would have far-reaching consequences for the war and for the country as a whole. As the years passed, the legacy of the Battle of Tannenberg continued to shape the course of history. The battle marked the beginning of a long and bloody conflict on the Eastern Front, one that would ultimately contribute to the downfall of the Russian Empire. Today, the Battle of Tannenberg is remembered as one of the most significant battles of World War I, a testament to the bravery and sacrifice of the soldiers who fought it. As Hindenburg himself later reflected, the battle was a great victory, but it was also a sobering reminder of the horrors of war. The battle is commemorated in Germany and Poland, with memorials and museums dedicated to preserving its history. In the end, the Battle of Tannenberg serves as a powerful reminder of the devastating consequences of war and the importance of understanding the complexities of history. The battle may be long over, but its legacy lives on, a testament to the enduring power of history to inform and inspire us. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, remember that to understand the present, we must first understand the past.